Mitch McConnell has made the Biden presidency look much better than it would have without the old crow pushing massive Green New Deal type funding for the radical left Democrats. It's incredible what McConnell has done. Inflation and debt will be the end result. However, not good for anybody, especially for our country. What Mitch McConnell has allowed the Democrats to get away with is absolutely unthinkable, and Republicans don't forget it.
In light of Nikki Haley's decision to jump in to the race today, do you think that it's time for the party to find a fresh face and move away from Donald Trump?
Well, what I think we're going to have is a vigorous primary with a number of candidates making their case, and the American people, those who are registered Republicans who are going to participate in these primaries, are going to decide who they want to nominate. And I think it's going to be very, very competitive in these primaries, and we'll hope for the best. And obviously, I'm going to support whoever the nominee ultimately is.
Welcome
back.
Since you've been out, you have not weighed in about the indictment of former President Donald Trump. Are you comfortable with the fact that your party's leading candidate for president is facing criminal charges and could be facing a trial in the middle of this election?
Well, Manu, let me put it this way. I may have hit my head, but I didn't hit it that hard. Good try.
Leader McConnell, can I expand on that a little bit? The former president, when he was arraigned, said Republicans in Congress should defund the DOJ and FBI. Is that something Republicans in Congress should be doing, or something you would support?
I think I can pretty safely say that I've not met any Republicans in Congress who want to spend less on law enforcement. We have a crime wave all across America. We have open borders. The last thing we want to do is spend less. We ought to be looking for ways to spend more on law enforcement.
Leader McConnell, do you have any comments on the reports of the hospitality that Justice Clarence Thomas received from Harlan Crow, and the Judiciary Committee's plan to hold hearings on the ethical standards of the Supreme Court?
Yeah, the Supreme Court and the court system is a whole separate part of our Constitution. And the Democrats, it seems to me, spend a lot of time criticizing individual members of the court and going after the court as an institution. For example, my counterpart went over in front of the Supreme Court and called out two of the Supreme Court justices by name and actually threatened them with some kind of reprisal, I don't know what kind, if they ruled the wrong way in a case that he cared about. The Attorney General seemed to be largely unconcerned with security issues around the homes of Supreme Court members. I have total confidence in the Chief Justice of the United States to deal with these court internal issues.
Leader McConnell, can you talk about...
Yeah, Chad.
Thank you. Help me understand something. Your CRS says that there was a default during the War of 1812. Depending on who you talk to, there were defaults in the 1970s here. You say this has never happened before, but explain in detail why you're so convinced that they would not fault. Now, what do you know, or is this just a feel thing based on, for the most part, history?
Well, the history of this issue is that the negotiating partners understand default is not an option. And that's why we always ultimately settle on some agreement. That has happened every time in the past, and it will happen again this time. The agreement is made by those who have political power. Those are given by elections. We have divided government. There has to be an agreement between the Speaker and the President, and there will be. And the sooner they get started talking directly or through their designees, the sooner we'll get an outcome.
Leader McConnell, do you accept as legitimate the verdict in New York finding that Donald Trump was liable for sexual abuse and defamation?
That's about presidential politics, and that'll all be settled in the primaries next year.
What about the verdict itself, the merits of the verdict?
It's all, I don't have any observations about it. American people are going to have to decide, particularly Republicans and Democrats, who they want to run for president next year.
You've always been a staunch supporter of the military. I wonder what you made of General Austin is out today with really stern warnings about readiness, also talking about profound confusion and disturbance for service members and their families as a result of Senator Tuberville's blockade of defense nominees. Do you still support that, or what's the way out?
You have to ask Senator Tuberville about that.
Do you support him?
No, I don't support putting a hold on military nominations. I don't support that, but as to why, you need to ask Senator Tuberville.
Leader McConnell, do you feel like this verdict, this E. Jean Carroll verdict, makes it harder for for Trump to win in a general election? Does it make it harder for you to win your Senate races in 2024?
Well, there's no question the presidential race is going on pretty early, and the Republican primary voters are going to determine sometime next year who they want to be the nominee, and I don't have any advice to give them.
Would you support him? Will you support him?
Given that the former president is facing a federal indictment and these serious allegations, could you still support him if he becomes the nominee, even if he's convicted?
Well, look, the Republican campaign for the nomination has already been going on for 6 months. It's going to be going on for a year longer. And I'm just simply not going to comment on the candidates. We've got a bunch of them, and I'm just simply going to stay out of it.
What about the indictment?
Leader McConnell, the House Appropriations Chairwoman says she's going to mark up the spending bills at the fiscal year 2022 levels. Should the House stick with the debt limit deal spending levels, and could this lead to an impasse over getting the government funded later this year?
Well, look, we're going to move forward. The House will allocate the 302Bs. The Senate will as well. And at the end, we'll have to work it out. But it's not totally uncommon for these to be different as they move through the process. And I think that's what's probably going to happen this time.
Leader McConnell, your reaction to the indictment that we've seen so far of the former president, and did he do something wrong in your view?
Look, I simply, as I said earlier, am not going to start commenting on the various candidates we have running for president. There are a lot of them. It's going to be interesting to watch, and I'll look forward to seeing your coverage.
Leader McConnell.
Alex.
Do you have any reaction to former President Trump saying that Hezbollah is very smart, and also his criticism of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu?
I certainly do. I can't disagree more. Hezbollah is a terrorist organization, just like Hamas, funded by the same source as Hamas. And Prime Minister Netanyahu is one of the great leaders of modern times.
Leader McConnell.
Andrew.
Can I ask about the supplemental, which you mentioned up top? Do you worry that including Ukraine in this Israel package could compromise the Israel portion, given the opposition to Ukraine among the House Republicans?
Well, I think we have to address the problem that I outlined at the beginning. The most recent attack in Israel is part of a broader concern developed during the Ukraine war. Basically, the democracies of the world are all on the same side. You see the South Koreans, the Japanese, the Taiwanese concerned about Ukraine. The Prime Minister of Japan said at one point, if you want to send President Xi a message, beat Putin in Ukraine. This is all interconnected. You've got the North Koreans, the Iranians, the Russians, and the Chinese, sort of, on the same side against the democratic world. So there's a connection between all of this, and I'm not surprised, frankly, that the administration seems to be inclined to send up a broad package. And as my colleagues have pointed out, the border part of it needs to be credible, not just some reference to it, but a credible dealing with the problem that Senator Daines just pointed out.
Leader McConnell, do you support Jack Lew's nomination to be the ambassador to Israel?
Well, I think he's having his hearing this week. We'll take a look at it.
Jim Jordan just failed to win the speaker vote. He's 20 votes short. Do you think the House should reinstall Kevin McCarthy or empower Patrick McHenry?
You guys cover the House. I got my hands full here in the Senate.
Are you comfortable with your party's leading presidential candidate referring to illegal immigrants as people who are poisoning the blood of our country?
Well, it strikes me that didn't bother him when he appointed Elaine Chao Secretary of Transportation.
Leader McConnell, this has been regarded as one of the least productive years in Congress in decades up here. Only 22 pieces of legislation signed into law. But we've had other issues in the House with the Speaker, senators trying to fight witnesses, sex in hearing rooms. Just how disappointed are you in this year legislatively and for the stature of the Congress?
Well, I don't serve in the House, but I don't think the Senate has been nearly as productive as it could have been. For example, we had a lot of floor time here the last couple of months. We could have been processing appropriation bills to get us in a better position to finish funding the government sooner. So, yeah, I'm not very happy with how productive the Senate has been this year, and hopefully it'll get better soon.
You think it's really that easy, considering the two big funding deadlines coming up and the border bill on the floor?
Leader McConnell, with regards to the appropriations bills for the rest of 2024, do you think the House Republicans should stick to the deal that McCarthy set for the top line for those bills?
Yeah, I don't give the Speaker public advice about how to handle things. A CR is simply unacceptable for a year. It's devastating, particularly for defense, and we've got all of these wars going on. So we need to reach an agreement on the top line and get about getting an outcome as soon as possible.
Leader McConnell, can you assure the Ukrainians who are in the trenches that there's aid coming? Is there help coming?